The Merton Mysteries, a Learn English radio series from the British Council. Dangerous Driving, Episode 2.
Hello, my name's Amanda Carlton.
And I'm David Evans. And in this series, we aim to improve your English language skills with the help of a series of crime mysteries.
In the last programme, we heard that there was an accident in Merton. A car drove much too quickly down the road and crashed into several parked cars.
The car was later set on fire in some woods near the town. Here's what happened when Inspector Tate and PC Gweno went to look at it.
Oh, it's such a shame. Look inside. The seats are all burnt. The windows are smashed.
Why would anyone do this?
They wanted to destroy the evidence, I suppose.
So what do you think? Was it kids?
Probably. I can't think of anyone else who would do it. Let's have a look round the back, shall we? I'll try and open the boot. So what have we got in here?
Oh, yes. What are these? It looks like they were training shoes once.
Or maybe not trainers. Actually, I think these were football boots.
Oh, yes. I see what you mean. And there's another pair over here.
So there is. 2 pairs of football boots, eh? Well, they're not much good to anyone now, are they?
No, and nor is this car, is it? So, what do we do, Inspector?
There's not much we can do. I'm sure someone will report it stolen before too long.
The next scene takes place the following day. PC Gweno has been trying to find the owner of the car. She puts down the phone and Inspector Tate says to her,
Have you made any progress, Gweno?
PC Gweno replies,
Not really, no. I mean, you would think if you owned a car like that and it went missing, you would report it stolen.
And here are 2 questions for you. What has she been doing to find the owner? And why is it so difficult to find the owner's name? Here's the first part of the scene.
Well, thank you for your help.
Have you made any progress, Gweno?
Not really, no. I mean, you would think if you owned a car like that and it went missing, you would report it stolen.
But you haven't found anything.
No! I've been through the computer database. I've called all the other police stations in the area, but there's nothing.
Perhaps the owner's on holiday or something.
Well, that's a possibility. But the problem is, I can't even find out who owns it.
What do you mean?
Well, it's not owned by a person. It's owned by a company. And the company's head office is abroad. And I can't find anything about them at all.
Perhaps you should try a different approach.
Like what?
Well, let's think about it for a moment.
Well, what has PC Gweno been doing to try to find the owner? She tells the inspector,
I've been through the computer database. I've called all the other police stations in the area, but there's nothing.
And why is it so difficult for her to find the name of the person who owns it? She explains,
It's not owned by a person. It's owned by a company. And the company's head office is abroad, and I can't find anything about them at all.
The inspector says to her,
Perhaps you should try a different approach.
And we'll find out what this different approach is in just a moment.
You're listening to the Merton Mysteries, a Learn English radio programme from the British Council.
When the scene continues, Inspector Tate asks,
What kind of person would drive that kind of car?
And what is PC Gweno's answer to that question? Inspector Tate then says,
You remember we found 2 pairs of football boots, didn't we?
And he then asks PC Gweno,
What kind of person keeps 2 pairs of football boots in the back of their car?
And what is her answer to that? And one more question for you. Who does Inspector Tate say that PC Gweno should speak to? Here's the next part of the scene.
What kind of person would drive a car like that?
I don't know.
Well, think, Gweno. Think.
Right. Someone rich, probably.
Yes.
Someone young? Yes, probably a young man. A rich young man. That's the kind of person who would drive that car.
A rich young man. And can you think of any rich young men in Merton?
Well, I've certainly never met any.
Only, you see, I've had an idea.
Have you, Inspector?
Yes. You remember we found 2 pairs of football boots, didn't we?
Yes.
So, what kind of person keeps 2 pairs of football boots in the back of their car?
Someone who really likes playing football?
Or...
Someone who plays football for a living.
Exactly. I think it's the kind of car a professional footballer would drive. Don't you?
Yes, I suppose it is.
So if I were you, Gweno, I'd go and have a word with the people at Merton United. Find out what they have to say about this.
Good idea, Inspector.
Yeah. Talk to the manager. What's his name? I think it's Ed McCain, isn't it?
So, according to PC Gweno, what sort of person would drive that car? She says,
A rich young man.
and what kind of person does she think would keep 2 pairs of football boots in his car? At first she says,
Someone who really likes playing football.
then she thinks again and says,
Someone who plays football for a living.
yes, they think the car might belong to a professional footballer. And so who does Inspector Tate think that PC Gweno should speak to? He says,
I'd go and have a word with the people at Merton United.
that's the name of the local professional football club. And Inspector Tate adds,
Talk to the manager. What's his name? I think it's Ed McCain.
and we'll hear what happens when PC Gweno speaks to Ed McCain in just a moment. You're listening to the Merton Mysteries, a Learn English radio series from the British Council. And don't forget, you can find more resources at our website at learnenglish.britishcouncil.org. In the next scene, PC Gweno goes to the Merton United training ground and finds Ed McCain. He's the manager. That means he's the boss. He organises the team and tells the players what to do. When Gweno arrives, he's watching the players practice. She introduces herself and says,
Do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
Ed McCain replies,
I'm sorry. We're in the middle of a training session. Can it wait?
PC Gweno continues,
I just want to ask you a couple of questions about the players' cars.
and here are 3 questions to answer as you listen. Do the players have their own cars? Does Merton United give them cars? And have any of the cars gone missing? Here's the scene.
Down the line, Jonesy! Tony! Here, I'm here, mate!
Excuse me, Mr. McCain? Are you Ed McCain?
Oh, hello, officer.
Are you Ed McCain?
Yes, of course I am.
Do you mind if I ask you a couple of questions?
I'm sorry. We're in the middle of a training session. Can't it wait?
It won't take long.
I'm sorry, officer. This is important. All right.
I'm sure it is. And what I have to ask you is important. I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions about the players' cars.
Their cars?
Yes. Do your players have their own cars?
Well, of course they do. They are professional footballers. They don't come to work on the bus, do they?
And does Merton United give them these cars?
Well, no, not exactly. We've got a deal with a company. You know, sponsorship. They give the boys a car, the boys give the company the publicity.
I see. So, what kind of cars do they get?
Well, top-of-the-range cars, of course. You know, sports cars mostly, beautiful things.
I see. And have any of these cars gone missing in recent days?
Just a moment. What is this about?
Well, we received a report of an expensive sports car which was involved in a number of accidents in Merton on Saturday afternoon. On Sunday morning, we found a sports car burnt out in some woods just outside the town. We think it's the same car and we're trying to find the owner.
Well, that has nothing to do with me or any of my boys.
You might be right, Mr. McCain, but do you think you could ask them? Ask them if a car has gone missing. It would be a big help.
We're always happy to cooperate with the police. If you can wait 20 minutes, I'll ask them at the end of the training session.
Thank you, Mr. McCain.
So, do the Merton United players have their own cars? Ed McCain says,
Well, of course they do. These are professional footballers. They don't come to work on the bus, do they?
And does Merton United give them these cars? Not exactly. McCain explains the arrangement.
We've got a deal with a company. You know, sponsorship. They give the boys a car, the boys give the company the publicity.
And have any of the cars gone missing? Ed McCain obviously doesn't think so. He tells PC Gweno,
That has nothing to do with me or any of my boys.
But PC Gweno doesn't give up. She says,
Do you think you could ask them? Ask them if a car has gone missing? It would be a big help.
And Ed McCain says to her,
If you can wait 20 minutes, I'll ask them at the end of the training session.
So does the sports car belong to a Merton United footballer? To find out, join us again for the next episode of our story, Dangerous Driving. Now here's a chance to hear a part of today's drama again.
Well, thank you for your help.
Have you made any progress, Gweno?
Not really, no. I mean, you would think if you owned a car like that and it went missing, you would report it stolen.
But you haven't found anything.
No! I've been through the computer database. I've called all the other police stations in the area, but there's nothing.
Perhaps the owner's on holiday or something.
Well, that's a possibility. But the problem is, I can't even find out who owns it.
What do you mean?
Well, it's not owned by a person. It's owned by a company. And the company's head office is abroad. And I can't find anything about them at all.
Perhaps you should try a different approach.
Like what?
Well, let's think about it for a moment. What kind of person would drive a car like that?
I don't know.
Well, think, Gweno. Think.
Right. Someone rich, probably.
Yes?
Someone young? Yes, probably a young man. A rich young man. That's the kind of person who would drive that car.
A rich young man. And can you think of any rich young men in Merton?
Well, I've certainly never met any.
Only, you see, I've had an idea.
Have you, Inspector?
Yes. You remember we found 2 pairs of football boots, didn't we?
Yes.
So, what kind of person keeps 2 pairs of football boots in the back of their car?
Someone who really likes playing football?
Or...
someone who plays football for a living?
Exactly! I think it's the kind of car a professional footballer would drive.
But that's all for today. You've been listening to The Merton Mysteries, a British Council Learn English radio series. And remember, you can find more resources at the British Council Learn English website at learnenglish.britishcouncil.org. Until next time, from Amanda Carlton and me, David Evans.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.